Alright, so I'm going to do a quick follow-up, real fast review. This is my Sovol SV04. I bought an SV06 and it was a piece of garbage right out of the box. And it honestly, I wasn't real impressed with it at all. Maybe other people have had other experiences, but I was very unimpressed with that. But this one, I don't know if anybody's ever run across this or not, but this was kind of my bread and butter machine, mainly because it's got the big plate and I've got the 2 extruders. I could make, 6 parts in the time that it would take me to make 3. And like this print is a fairly large print. It's taken up almost all the build plate. So, the size really became a factor. And it's just been a really good machine. I have really no complaints after the initial setup, and going through a YouTube video that I found, the instructions were worthless and actually caused all kinds of problems. The original build plate got scratched and really dug into by the nozzle after following their instructions to a T. But there was a YouTube video, I think, that I found that told me the way to do it to get everything zeroed. And after I did that, it's been rock solid. The motors are nice and quiet, and I made me a little cover for this. What did I just do? Anyway, that just kind of keeps that where it's dark in here. I just bought that a while back, and that thing seems to work pretty good too. Either way, so this machine has been rock solid up to this. So I kept getting a thermistor error, I think. And I would turn on this head, whatever you call it, extruder, and this one. So I kept messing with it. No, turns out it was the bed, the thermistor on it that was messed up. And there was a wire that was just broken right in here. After I put that back together, it's been fantastic. Been a great machine. The biggest thing that I have is I upgraded Cura, and for some reason I can only use this extruder. Hasn't really been a big deal right now, but it's going to be because I want to do some copy stuff. But every time I would tell it to use that one, it would end up using this one. I don't know what to do about that just yet. Just hadn't really looked into it. But what I'm making is a double version of this. So you can see it's 2 of them, and it's a little bit shorter. So originally I was using these ball screws. They were 250 millimeters in length. The problem is nothing I have is big enough to get this length. So you can see the way I put it together. I just kind of notched it, and actually that worked extremely well. But I just didn't want to have to do that. I wanted to make it in one thing. So I bought instead different length ball screws or lead screws. These are a different pitch, and what I did like about these is you have the regular ball screw, which is just a regular ball screw, and for my application it's perfectly fine because I'm literally just moving this back and forth as a test. I needed to make a linear actuator, but I didn't want to buy one, so I printed that's the carriage, and that sits down in that track just like so, and the motor mounts right here. So that mounts into here. This mounts on the side of my box like so. One thing I didn't like about it is it was too tall, for one. I didn't really need that much. All I need is just linear movement. And eventually I'm going to put limit switches here and here. And then a scale that I'll probably laser cut at work, where I've got nice, accurate notches with a little indicator so I can actually see which way it's going and all that good stuff. So that's what that's going to be. But what I wanted originally was a total of 6 axes. So what I'm going to have is 4 rotary axes that this does, and then on the side I'm going to have 2 of them that are mounted with that. I've got a buddy that's a programmer that's going to help me with programming the Arduino. And so what I'm doing is I'm making 2 of these. This is my prototype that I've just sort of been building as I go. But eventually I'm going to have 2 that are identical with all the electronics that are identical. And the control box that I don't have completely done yet, I'm going to add lights and stuff like that to this. But essentially you're going to have selector switches here and a rotary encoder here. So what I want to be able to do is select, you know, my lowest up to, well, actually this would be the axis switch. So this or this or this or this or this or this axis. So you can see I've got 4 of everything coming slowly but surely. This piece was the most aggravating part to print, and I've actually got it printing now here and here. So one of the reasons I was going to make this video is, for one, I bought some enclosures that you can see here, and I bought this is a different enclosure than this one, and I bought a SV01 Pro, I think is what it is. And you can't really see it in there, but you can see it's actually been printing really better than my Creality. This one is the most expensive one I've got, I think, but really the most limited one in some ways. Still been a good printer, but you can see I'm actually just trying to peel up in that corner, and I don't want to deal with it. So I've got a pair of tweezers holding it down with something clamped on them to kind of hold it in place to hopefully keep it from peeling up, because one of the last things that I printed is this, and you can see what happened. I could technically still use it, but I've actually made multiple changes to this since I started printing it. But you know, you can see I started printing some extra parts and stuff. So I now have, this one is the Ender 3 S1 Pro. This is the SV01 Pro. If I were going to pick either one of these so far, honestly, this is probably a better machine. Actually, I like, the only thing I don't like is the build plate is just a magnet. So it's really flexible, and I could see that getting damaged fairly easily. So I'm going to order one of those type build plates for it. And at work, I've got an SV02. And this past weekend, I was trying to print some 3D printed press brake dies, and I got some kind of glob worm thing when I came in. This stuff was all over the place. It actually tore the bed off the printer. It messed up all kinds of stuff. And I actually started the print by accident using one of these and didn't realize I'd started it. But either way, that screwed me up. But this one is the most useful so far. As far as size and everything, for what I've spent, it's great. But man, those SV01 Pros, I am very impressed with this machine so far. I've had it for a few days and it's been pretty much flawless. I don't know about printing ABS and stuff. One of the reasons I got these enclosures was, for one, I kept getting this peel crap. You know, when you consider the amount of time it takes to print that, it really screwed up a lot of stuff. And so I heard that the enclosures help with that, and so far they seem to have helped. I think with my bed, I've got something in that corner. That's the second time I started printing something and it started to peel up right there. I think it's just dirty. I cleaned it with dishwashing liquid and then alcohol, but it doesn't seem to be helping. So I'll have to really clean it again. But that one's been great. So I've got actually more of these printing. I've added some cutouts here, some just little reliefs for some features that are going to be going through it, some more bolt holes on the bottom, some bolt holes in the corner, and a few other little features as I fixed it. But that is going almost done, so I'm going to try to print 2 at the same time. So I'm actually that's the first revision that I've kind of replaced parts and stuff as I've needed to. But now my next step is I've got 2 of those printing, one here and one here. And after this gets done, I'm going to print another one of these, and then I'm going to print a lot of the small parts. I've got a lot of them already done, so like I can reuse some of these that are actually the right revision. But one of the things I did with this is I started out with 1/4 bolts, and I wanted the the ones that are like well, shoot, I can't think. Oh, this one, you can see the head is actually at a 45-degree angle. I forget what you call those, but see, these stick out, and I'm redoing the whole thing to where you use 1024 bolts that are more like this. They're cheaper, and I know where to get them, and I'm trying to set this up to where I can send the files in like a parts list to somebody if they needed to. So far, everything's just been tapped, just with a tapping arm that I've got. So you can see, like, I've got another one of these printed. I'll be printing another one of these shortly. I've got another one of these I'm actually going to print 2 of those because this one actually didn't finish printing. And again, a lot of this is all 1/4 size stuff, and it's going to turn into 1024, which is more than sufficient for what this thing is. But the idea is I'm going to make 2 of these, send one to my buddy that's a programmer, and he's going to help me figure out the programming side of this along with ChatGPT. But honestly, the Sovol machines so far, I am very happy with overall. The one thing I don't like is I bought a big old huge roll, and I can't use it on the machine. The spool holders actually won't hold it. So eventually I'm going to make another spool holder that goes on there that actually goes above it, and instead of it hanging to one side, it'll be centered up here, so I can use 2 of those big rolls for like longer prints and stuff. But these things are fantastic. The only thing that I don't like is like it doesn't work with the SV01. It'll work beautifully with. It would work good with this one. It's got 1 extruder, 1 hotbed, 1 hot nozzle, whatever you call them. But the problem is, if you do anything like my SV02, it's got 2 extruders, and I can only, it don't work really well with that. So I want to be able to, for instance, with this one, I want to say be able to preheat that nozzle or that one, I forget what you call it, hot end, I guess. And with this, I can only control that hot end. It won't let me do much with that. Now I can, before I upgraded Cura, I could actually send it parts, and it would print with both or that one, either one. But I couldn't control it. So I couldn't say, you know what, I want to make that 210 degrees instead of 200 degrees. It was, I could come here and do it, but I couldn't do it through the Beagle. But overall, I would say buy those things. They're great. I'm going to end up with one for every 3D printer I've got, probably. But anyway, so SV04, thumbs up after you get the setup right. And this build plate I got off of Amazon. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's way better than the original. SV01 Pro, thumbs up, get it, it's great. This one has been great, rock solid. And I don't know why, but recently, I don't know if you can see, but that first layer looks like crap. And for whatever reason here lately, everything that I've done with that, the first layer and maybe the next 2 or 3, just look horrible, and then it's beautiful after that. So it's just the first few layers just don't do well, and then after that they do great. And I've tried lowering my offset, I've tried raising it, I've tried multiple settings in Cura, and everything that I've done so far, I can't fix that. I know it's probably a setting somewhere, and I think part of it has had to do with the enclosure, but it was actually doing it before I put it in the enclosure. What I have done is lowered my temperatures, so instead of printing something at 205, I'm printing it at 195, and it seems to do better inside the enclosure. But the idea with the enclosures was originally to get, I wanted to print some ABS parts. So that'll be one of the next things that I try. But I'm going to relocate this stuff out of this room into something that's in my shop, probably, where I can run the gases out into some kind of a duct or something. I don't know. But that one, I think you can actually print ABS too. And I actually did this on purpose. I bought this one first, and I like this enclosure. It's pretty good. This one is actually better. I think I like the way it's set up better, the way you get cords in and out of it work better. The one thing I hadn't figured out with these enclosures yet is a way to add those cameras where they work. So I'm probably going to use the poles on the side. These are kind of like a tent, and make me some kind of a mount where I can mount them in the corner pointing that way. I've got another one coming for my SV04 that's just really big. But for the money, you can't build something like this cheaply and easily and this compact. One thing I will say that I absolutely love about this printer is that light right there. They should make that standard, or even if you don't add the light, give us a 24 volt or 12 volt thing, little connector up here where we can plug in and add our own light if we want to. 3D print it, put some LEDs, something to where we can make it, but just run 2 wires and make it an upgrade that we could do if we wanted to. That would just make so much sense. But those lights are awesome. But I'm probably going to end up putting lights in the enclosures, and just setting it up on one switch where they all light up at once eventually. Anyway, but man, I love that light. That's a fantastic idea. But either way, so yeah, that's what I've been up to partially. And I'm actually going to probably build one of these, but bigger. And instead of using these, I've got some spare linear rails laying around. So I'm going to basically build this exact same idea, but I'm either going to take aluminum or steel or something and build a really nice one, but just I want to kind of use the same kind of controls. You can get those on eBay or Amazon for like, I don't know, 50 bucks. You can get a better offline controller for 50 bucks, and different spindles. But honestly, this is a very simple thing to make if you have the tools, and I happen to have the tools. Right now, I'm fiddling with this one, so I've 3D printed a little mount for the limit switch, and I'm going to make some other stuff. But my problem is I need 5 more printers. I don't have enough printers. I need like way more printers. But the way it's heading right now, I'll probably be running all these 24/7 for the next 2 weeks to make parts. But either way, I'm telling you, 3D printing is far more awesome than I would have ever thought. And what's so neat about it to me is there are so many parts that if I wanted to make, just something that simple, it's just a block. Originally, I had roller skate bearings that I had made a thing where it would roll up and down. I don't know what I did with that one, but that was the original idea. Was in this track, I had this set up to where 2, or it was actually 3. 2 of them were on one side and one was on the other, and it worked really well. I was pretty happy with it, but to be honest, this works just as good, and it's something that I can completely 3D print. And all I'm after is just linear movement. It don't have to be, obviously I'm not using this to make parts. It's strictly to move up and down inside of that track. So one of the things I probably should have done is relieved the middle and just made like almost like a mock round surface here, and here, or maybe 4 of them. But so far, this seems to work really well, and I can just take a file and sort of trim it down to where it's a good, nice fit. And I'm trying to set it up to where 99% of the stuff is actually 3D printable as much as possible. You can buy these, and that's kind of the idea behind that, is that's basically what I'm looking for, is something like this. But that was, like 150 bucks or something, and it's way overkill for what I need. It's heavy, and you got to buy it and order it. I'm trying to set this up to where you can do as much as possible with a 3D printer. You order These were like 10 bucks for 2 of them or something. Those were cheap. These little NEMA 17 motors really don't cost that much. I'm also going to move away, I think, from the, those are, shoot, I can't remember what they're called now. Dang it, it's the drivers for your servo motors. And what I'm going to move to is these. So I've got to run some tests and figure out KiCad and what that's actually going to be used for. I'm going to make a custom circuit board with these. So I'll have a double-sided circuit board where you can make it yourself. And essentially you'll have all of your drivers, all 6, in a much smaller package instead of just having 4 in it that it's got now. So essentially, one of the reasons I added the holes is to make a mounting plate for the circuit board. I've also relieved, I put a hole here, and I'm going to add a hole on the side here for wire access up to this breadboard. I've also changed this to where this doesn't directly stick on it, but it's removable. You'll have a plate that sticks onto that can bolt and unbolt, so if you needed to change it for some reason, it'd be easier to do. But I've got to work out this circuit first, and I'm actually going to do it like this. So I'm going to use these little things on the circuit board where you can replace these little drivers if you need to. But for a NEMA 17, that's all you really need. And then I'm going to use those 4 and a few others that I have to run my router thing that I'm going to make. I'm going to make like a 2 foot by 2 foot or a 4 foot by 2 foot or something like that, like a router that can double as a laser cutter / engraver or whatever. And I've got one of those laser head things around here somewhere, I think. Yeah, one of these. I bought this a while back. Didn't work out for what I wanted, but I'm going to use it as a test for something else. But either way, so yeah, been 3D printing away. The funny part is I've got a fully functional machine shop outside that I've barely used. And you know, if you're a maker, you want to get into making stuff, and man, I'm telling you, you can't beat a 3D printer. You can do so much with them. Some design software, something like Fusion would probably work great. Get started making your own parts, coming up with your own ideas. I mean, that's something I've been making in SolidWorks. If somebody has any ideas on how to fix or, well, improve on this idea. So I'm going to have 4 rotary, 2 linear. I'm going to have limit switches here. I'm going to put LEDs across here to act as like an indicator. So like if I was going to turn the spindle on that orange LED and that pink LED, and that, you know, I could make those specific things that are wired into this over here. I'm also going to make another thing that will also hold a Raspberry Pi above that, so you'll have a couple of different options there. And I'm going to set this up. I'm using my Hercules drill batteries, but what I'm going to do is set it up to where it will also work with DeWalt, which is a little bit more common. And I'm probably going to add a way to plug like a laptop charger into this, where if you didn't want to use a battery, you could do that. But my idea was, with a battery, I can take it anywhere and I don't have to look for a plug-in, and that battery lasts forever. But what I'm probably going to do is when you take this out, you'll have access to a port here that you can plug a charger, like a laptop charger, into. That way you can't use it with the battery in, so you can't screw up the battery by using that. But if you don't have the battery, you can print it just the same. You'll have the ability to use a battery, but then when you take it out, you can just plug a laptop charger right in. I've got a bunch of IBM Lenovo chargers from old laptops that are 20 volt that I think would work really well. So eventually I'll add that as well, so you'll have the ability to do that. This is a 5 volt converter, just like this, so I can do anywhere, I think from 8 to 22 volts, and it comes out at 5 volts. So that gives you your control voltage here and your 20 volts here for everything else. So either way, any ideas, let me know. Have a good day.